Hello and welcome to another retro crazy mini Byte. We're going to look at the Amstrad MP-2 modulator today. Now, I know I haven't featured any of the Amstrad series yet on the channel, however, it doesn't stop me from doing a modulator. The Amstrad CPC range, when it came out, they shipped with either a green or a colour monitor. So what's the point in this? Well, first of all, the monitors were quite heavy and bulky to move around. So if you wanted to take your CPC somewhere quickly, it really wasn't that simple and straightforward. It was, awkward. The other issue being, for those with a green screen, you never got any colour. And most people probably had a colour telly, so they might want to see it in colour. So while it had a use, it wasn't a requirement by any shape, form or description. What it does is it provides an RF output, it provides power and takes the video signal in, and then obviously you've got your mains cable. This is old, the caps in here are probably dried out. I am not going to do anything until this has been redone. Before we get to this though, I'm going to do an unsponsored segment. Yeah. No, not a sponsored segment, an unsponsored segment. And I want to talk about things like capacitors. Only ever used high quality caps. Now, things like Panasonic's, Rubicons, Nichicons, Nippon Chemicon, all very good quality capacitors. And trying to get them can be an absolute pain. Now you can go to places like RS Components and DigiKey and all these other places and buy them direct. Normally you have to buy them in fairly large quantity if you want the best price. You can also end up paying through the nose for postage because you've got a small value order. I like to use eBay. Why not? It's there, it's convenient, it's simple, but you've got to watch out for the fake caps. I've actually been using one person as a go-to for my initial searches, and that's a seller called Techie Kid. I'll put a link down in the description, so please go and have a look at his eBay shop. But he does Panasonic, Nichicon, all of the rest of them, and he is absolutely superb. That one just simply says, "Thank you, Duncan. Best regards, Martin." He is an absolutely superb seller. It's all genuine stuff. If you're using eBay, go have a look. You never know, you might get a nice little deal on some caps. With that unsponsored segment over, let's open this up. Aside from the main board, you can see a lot of grime. Yeah, this is going to need a bit of a clean too, no problem there. We've got what looks like our video in here, and that's your RF out, and then your power side here. So let's strip this out and we'll see what we're left with. Right, with that out, we can see everything is just kind of sat here. I may well end up desoldering this to work on this board separately because I don't need any of this. What I can see is this is just lying loose. Now, it was quite badly packaged when I purchased it. I did advise the seller on eBay. it was just in a jiffy bag for something that's this heavy. Just a padded envelope is not enough. And yeah, it got one hell of a knock. There was a loose piece which fell out. Not sure where it's come from yet. However, this is not looking good. But again, Amstrad have done the usual. They've riveted on what looks like the 7805 and the 7812. So, take a quick mark about where all these go for the windings, and I think I'll desolder these just to get them out the way and make it a little bit easier to work on. So with the transformer gone and out the way, I'm now going to desolder the 7805 and the 7812, which should allow me to completely lift these up out the way and give me full access to all the caps and this tiny little, what looks like a tiny little transformer here. So let's see what happens. So with these out the way, I can pop them to the side at the moment. I'll need to take them out, drill those out, replace them and fit new ones. But it does allow me to have a look here and see if there's any damage. I can see we might have been lucky. It looks like it has pulled, but I don't think there's been any lasting damage. It does unfortunately kind of look like it's just hovering there. Nice one, Amstrad. I'm going to desolder this and lift it out anyway. I can check the underside, make sure there's nothing permanently damaged. So here it is. It's actually a little coil. Whatever this is, just looks like plastic flash, thankfully, so that can go. The two wires look fine. We can do a resistance test through them, make sure everything's fine. So I can reseat this a little bit better when it goes in so that it sits flat against the base rather than as upright as it was and flopping about. I'm wondering if I can actually use the forward positions, move it slightly further across so that it will sit flat, which would make it a little bit safer. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. But it does look like it's survived. Let's pop it to the side so we can actually look at these capacitors. Now, there's a number around the board. That one's not sure if that's slightly domed. It's difficult to see. These certainly have no pressure release on the top. A lot of more modern caps, you'll see the scored in kind of like a T on the top. If they overpressurize, it blows there. These have nothing, so if these were to blow, they'd make a much bigger bang and quite a loud noise. So let's replace all of these caps and get this ready for testing. So again, a big thank you to Techie Kid for the Panasonic caps. Absolutely superb, dropped straight in, no problems at all. The only one I didn't get from them was this one because they weren't in stock. However, important to note, this is a power supply and they get hot. you've got a 7805 and a 7812 and 2 heat sinks. And this is how a lot of manufacturers cheap out. These caps, not one of them is rated for more than 85 degrees. So not great, they will dry out, they will fail. You can see it clearly there, 85 degrees. Not great. You should be able to see it on these as well. Nice and clear, 85 degrees. All of these Panasonic caps are 105 degrees. They should last a lot longer and be a lot more stable. Right, next on the list, I need to drill out the 7812 and the 7805 and get some new ones fitted. And by the looks of it, maybe put on some thermal compound as well, because they look bone dry. So back in a second. So with these drilled out, I can get rid of these and get ready to fit the replacements. Now, if you're in any doubt with something like this, you can mark the board before you drill. This one's nice and simple. The way this is done, the way it sits, you can see clearly marked on the silk screen 7812, and that's right on the edge. So I know that my 7812 will be going on there. So let's get these with some MX4 thermal compound, and I'll dig out the riveting gun and we'll get these riveted back on. Now obviously I'm lucky, I do actually have a rivet gun so I can do this. However, you could replace these with just nuts and bolts, make it easier long term. I'm just putting it back to manufacturer original spec. With these now done, I can hopefully get them refitted down into the PCB after I've looked at this. So let's see if we can position this a little bit better. In fact, that's just dropped on quite nicely and will clear. So let's see about getting this soldered back on, followed by the 7805 and the 7812. At that point, a good clean and we can pop it all back in the case. So I'm ready for final assembly. I'm not going to test until I've got everything screwed down into the base. I've not actually washed it, it's in quite nice condition. I've given it a good dust. There's a couple of areas which I just can't get into quite enough, but nothing major there. However, what I did spot is that's the mount. There's 3 holes in this, but I'm missing 2 tabs. And I suspect that is one of the tabs. So I'm going to put a bit of super glue on that before assembly, just to give it a third point to ensure it's got some strength. So here we are, it's plugged into the mains. I have decided to put it together because I can test it here and here, and if anything goes wrong, well, it's a power supply and it can blow inside the case and hopefully contain some of it. Now, rather than trying to shove 2 probes in there, what I'm going to do is use my lead that I made for my bench power supply, which will actually give me 2 contacts. So I can check there, and then I can check here. and as you can see at the moment it's off. Let's find out what happens when this is switched on. I'm hoping we do not get a bang. Well, I heard a click, I can hear my washing machine, but that's all. So I'm hoping that's a good sign. Let's see what voltages we get. So that'll be the 12 volt rail. Oh yeah. It's dancing about because there we go, I couldn't get a decent connection. So the 12 volts is rock steady, no movement. What about 5 volts? Not sure that's 5 volts. That's a little bit strange, assuming that is actually the 5 volt output, but I can't see it being anything else. Well, it looks like temporarily we're back to the drawing board. Okay, I've done a lot of chasing around this board, reflowing points, checking, making sure I've nothing short-circuited. I still have lovely 12 volts here, and now I've got 5 volts. So let me explain what's happened. So after having chased everything around the board and trying to work out the path and how the power was being transferred, I've lifted out all of the transistors, I've checked them, they're all fine, and I couldn't find a fault. And then I had a light bulb moment, and that's that cringe-worthy light bulb moment when you realise that you're the fault. So this is a 7812, which is 12 volts, and stupidly I could see that chip, I couldn't read that one, and I've assumed it was a 7805. And that's what I've got on here, is a 7805. I dug out the original and popped it back in, and had I looked carefully at the circuit board as well, I would have seen it's clearly marked TIP32. Amstrad have used a different voltage regulator. Yeah. So I've ordered up a couple of the TIP32s. Let's get a new one in. We'll get this drilled out, and yeah, see what happens once we've got the correct voltage regulator back in place. So now that this is all assembled, let's just make sure we're still getting 5 volts. And there we are, 5 volts, pretty stable. A little bit of deflection, that could be, as you can see, moving this about. Yep, happy with that. So there we go. You can hear a nice satisfying hum from the transformer. I won't know about the RF side until I have a working Amstrad CPC. I do have a number of them still to look at, so they'll come up in the future. I have checked the voltages to the chip. Even though this side of it was giving out 25 volts, it doesn't look like the 5 volts for the RF modulator was actually run off of this side. It looks like it was actually run off the 12 volts and stepped down, because when I checked the chip it was getting 5 volts. So fingers crossed that's all fine, but that's for another episode when we look at an Amstrad CPC. So thank you for watching the mini Byte. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and remember, don't assume. Double check your chips, double check your components. See you next time.